if I told you that being the good employee could actually cost you your peace? What if the very thing people praise you for, being dependable, always available, never saying no, is the same thing quietly draining your joy, stealing your time, and leaving you too exhausted to even recognize yourself? Because some of us were taught that saying yes is professionalism, that overgiving is loyalty, that being stretched thin is just a part of being successful. But let's tell the truth. Some people are not rewarding your lack of boundaries. They're benefiting from it. And one day you wake up and realize you didn't just give your job your effort. You gave it your evenings, your energy, your peace, your presence, and pieces of yourself you can't easily get back. That's why this matters. Because embarrassment will pass. But the regret of overgiving, the regret of missing moments, swallowing resentment, and staying too available for people who were never going to protect you, that lingers. So if you've been calling burnout being dedicated, if you've been calling exhaustion just part of the job, and if you've been shrinking in the name of being seen as easy to work with, stay with me. Because today we're talking about what really happens when you set zero boundaries at work. Hey y'all, welcome back to Ways of Change. I'm Vanessa, and this is a space where I document my journey of searching for an overseas job, building a softer, more intentional life, and figuring out what it means to start over with courage, faith, and a whole lot of honesty. Today is day 75, and I submitted an application for an administrative officer position in Hawaii with the Department of the Navy. Yeah, I know it's not overseas, but it's Hawaii. So yes, the job search continues. I also completed my engagement hour, and I posted a quote that I pulled from a previous episode from this week. Embarrassment will pass, but regret lingers. And I also got an update from that position in Vilsec that I applied for it in this episode right here. I was rated eligible, but unfortunately not referred. Now let me just pause there, because if you're job searching right now, you already know how layered this kind of news could be. On one hand, being found eligible means, okay, I'm qualified, I'm in the conversation. I'm not completely off base here. But on the other hand, not being referred still feels like a door that didn't open. And disappointment is disappointment. But I'm still here, still applying, still trusting, still moving. And honestly, that quote fits today's topic better than I even realized when I posted it. Because today I want to talk about something that will quietly wear you down if you're not careful. What happens when you set zero boundaries at work? Not weak boundaries, not inconsistent boundaries. I mean zero boundaries. Is that you? The kind where everybody has access to you. Everybody could dump on you. Everybody can interrupt you. Everybody can expect more from you. And somehow, you're the one left feeling guilty for being tired. If you've ever been the dependable one, the one who always says yes, the one who always stays late, fixes messes, holds it together, keeps smiling, and swallows your frustration because you want to be seen as professional, this episode is for you. Because a lack of boundaries doesn't make you a better employee. Sometimes it makes you an easier one to use. Trust me, I've been there. And that may be hard to hear, but it's real. So today we're going to talk about what it costs when you don't protect your time, your energy, your peace, and your sense of self at work. And we're also going to talk about how to stop mistaking self-abandonment for dedication. Let's have our spiritual anchor first. The scripture I want to anchor this episode in is Proverbs 4:23. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. I love this verse for today because boundaries are a form of guarding. Guarding your peace, guarding your energy, guarding your mind, guarding your health, your joy. And some of us were raised to think that guarding ourselves was selfish. But the Bible doesn't say, let everybody drain you in the name of being nice. It says, guard your heart. That means discernment. That means wisdom. That means not giving unlimited access to people, systems, or environments that keep taking from you without care for what it costs you. So if you've been feeling stretched thin, emotionally overdrawn, mentally cluttered, or spiritually bankrupt, I want you to hear this. You are allowed to protect what God entrusted to you. Now, before I go any deeper into today's message, let me just say this about Day 75 update. I applied to the administrative officer's role in Hawaii, and every single time I hit submit on one of these applications, I'm reminded that reinvention takes courage. And on the real, that update from Bill Sack reminded me of the same thing. Because sometimes courage doesn't look like winning. Courage looks like applying anyway. Courage looks like hoping anyway. Courage looks like getting news that stings a little and not letting it take you out. It takes courage to keep trying. It takes courage to put your name in the room. It takes courage to risk disappointment. And yeah, my friend, it even takes courage to risk embarrassment. That's why that quote hits me so deeply. Embarrassment will pass, but regret lingers. A little discomfort, that passes. A closed door, that passes too. Not getting referred, not getting picked, that all passes. But living with the knowledge that you stayed small because you were afraid to be seen, that kind of regret can sit with you for a long, long time. And that same truth applies in the workplace too. Sometimes the embarrassment is saying, no, I can't take that on right now. Sometimes the embarrassment is saying, I'm unavailable after business hours. Sometimes the embarrassment is correcting a pattern that should have never been established in the first place. Sometimes the embarrassment is finally deciding they can't keep having access to me like this. And yeah, in the moment it may feel awkward. It may feel uncomfortable. It may even feel rude if you're not used to it. But discomfort is temporary. Regret is what lingers when you look up years later and realize you gave too much of yourself away. Here's the thing nobody talks about enough. Most people don't wake up one day and decide, you know what? I'd love to be overworked, underappreciated, and emotionally exhausted. That's not how it starts. It starts innocently. It starts with being eager, being capable. It starts with wanting to do well, wanting to be seen as reliable. It starts with wanting to keep the peace, not wanting to disappoint anybody. And especially if you're a woman, and especially if you're used to wearing many hats, if you're used to being strong, adaptable, and resourceful, people can start to expect your flexibility as if it cost you nothing. That's how zero boundaries get built. One extra task. One late evening email. One, can you just? One, you're so good at this. One, we knew we could count on you. And before long, what started as generosity becomes expectation. What started as professionalism becomes availability. What started as teamwork becomes imbalanced. What started as excellence becomes exploitation. And the hardest part, sometimes nobody even announces the shift. They just slowly get used to you overextending yourself. And if you've been praised all your life for being strong, dependable, selfless, and accommodating, it can be very hard to tell the difference between being valuable and being depleted. The first thing that disappears when you have no boundaries at work is your time. Your time stops feeling like your own. You may technically be off the clock, but mentally, emotionally, you're still at work. You're checking your email too late. You're thinking about tomorrow's task during dinner. You're replaying conversations in your mind at night. You're carrying unfinished tension into spaces that were supposed to restore you. And the truth is, stolen time doesn't always look dramatic, y'all. Sometimes it looks like you being physically present, but emotionally absent. You're in the room, but your mind is still at work. You're with your family, but your nervous system is still in response mode. You're trying to rest, but your brain is still waiting for the next demand. That's not peace. That's not balance. That's survival in a cute outfit. And once your time stops belonging to you, it becomes easy, very easy, for the rest of your life to start shrinking around your job. The second thing you lose is emotional space. When you don't have clear boundaries, you start carrying things that were never yours to carry. Other people's urgency, other people's poor planning, other people's moods, other people's frustration, other people's chaos. And if you're empathetic, oh my gosh, this could hit especially hard, because empathy without boundaries becomes emotional overload. You start absorbing the tone of the room. You start personalizing other people's stress. You start feeling responsible for outcomes that are bigger than your role. You start managing personalities instead of simply staying in your lane. And before you know it, your peace is being dictated by who emailed you, who called you, what went wrong, or who's upset. That is exhausting. Helping is one thing, don't get me wrong, but becoming the container for everybody else's dysfunction is another. And some workplaces will absolutely let you become that container if you don't decide otherwise. This is the deepest cost right here. You lose yourself, not all at once, not dramatically, not in one big cinematic event, but slowly. You stop checking in with what you need. You stop asking what feels healthy. You stop noticing what your body is trying to tell you. You stop honoring your own limits. And instead of asking, what's sustainable for me, you start asking, what will keep everybody else happy, everybody else comfortable? That is a dangerous pattern. When your life becomes organized around keeping everyone else pleased, eventually you don't even know where you are in the equation anymore. You become efficient, useful, productive, but not necessarily whole. You can look calm on the outside and still be unraveling on the inside. You could perform well and still be depleted. You could be praised and still be miserable. So when we talk about boundaries, we're not just talking about calendars and email etiquette. We're talking about identity. We're talking about whether your worth has become tangled up in how much you can carry. Now let's keep it truthful about why this is so hard. A lot of people struggle with boundaries at work because of fear. Oh, in this climate? Fear of looking difficult, fear of losing opportunities, fear of disappointing leadership, fear of not being liked, fear of being passed over, fear of being misunderstood, fear of being seen as lazy, selfish, or uncommitted. And for many of us, there's an even deeper layer. We were taught to overperform. We were taught that being needed meant being valuable. We were taught that saying yes made us good. We were taught to prove ourselves again and again and again. And if you're the only one in the room with my complexion, we were taught we had to be twice as good. So when it's finally time to say, no, I'm not available. No, that won't work for me. No, I can't continue to carry that. It doesn't just feel like a sentence. It feels like rebellion. But sometimes growth feels exactly like that. Sometimes growth feels like choosing yourself in a room that benefited from you not doing that. Let me say that again, because I want you to get it. Sometimes growth feels like choosing yourself in a room that benefited from you not doing that. And yeah, people will notice, but that does not mean you're wrong, my friend. This is why I want to bring that quote back. This is so powerful, and that's why I'm spending 2 days on it. Embarrassment will pass, but regret lingers. A lot of people avoid boundary setting because they don't want the discomfort of the moment. They don't want the awkward pause. They don't want the facial expressions. They don't want the shift in tone. They don't want to feel like they're making things harder. But what lingers is not usually the moment you finally spoke up. What lingers is the memory of all the times you didn't. The birthdays you worked through, the evenings you gave away, the peace you sacrificed, the resentment you swallowed, the signs your body gave you that you ignored, the dreams you delayed because you were too drained to imagine anything beyond surviving the week. That's regret. And that's why this message matters. Because a boundary may feel uncomfortable for 5 minutes, but burnout, resentment, chronic stress, a life you barely recognize because work consumed too much of it, that can sit with you for years. So yeah, maybe your voice shakes when you set the boundary. Maybe you rehearse it 3 or 4 times before you even say it. Maybe you feel awkward afterwards. Say it anyway. Because temporary discomfort is not worse than long-term regret. Now let me make this practical. Healthy work boundaries don't have to be loud, dramatic, or disrespectful. Sometimes they sound like, I'm at capacity right now. That won't be possible today. I can revisit this during work hours tomorrow. I'm not available this evening. I'd be happy to support, but I need clarity on priorities. If this is urgent, what should I move off my plate? That last one? That's a good one. That's my favorite. Because sometimes the issue isn't that you can't help. It's that everybody keeps acting like your capacity is infinite. And healthy boundaries help reveal reality. They force prioritization. They force clarity. They force responsibility back where it belongs. Not every workplace will celebrate your boundaries. Some people will resist them precisely because they were benefiting from your lack of them. But resistance doesn't equal wrongness. Sometimes resistance is proof that the pattern is changing. So now I want to speak to the person who is in a season of transition. The person thinking about a new role, a new environment, a new chapter, a new life. One of the blessings of starting over is this. You get the chance to decide what comes with you and what doesn't. And I think that's important in the season of my life too. As I apply for these positions, as I keep showing up day after day after day, as I get some yeses, some maybes, some silence, some not referreds, I'm also paying attention to who I want to be in the next chapter. Not just where I want to work, but how I want to live. I don't want a future that costs me my peace. I don't want a title that demands my whole soul. I don't want success that leaves no room for rest, presence, joy, or purpose. And maybe that's something you're realizing too. Maybe the next chapter is not just about a different paycheck or a different location. Maybe it's about different patterns. Maybe it's about finally refusing to abandon yourself just to be accepted somewhere. So as we close, here's what I want to leave you with. If you set zero boundaries at work, eventually work will take more than just your labor. It will take your time. It will take your emotional space. It will take your peace. It will take your energy. And if you let it go unchecked long enough, it will start trying to take your whole sense of self. That is too high of a price to pay. You don't have to earn your worth by overextending yourself. You don't have to prove your value by constantly being available. You don't have to keep saying yes to things that are costing you too much. Let today be the reminder. Embarrassment will pass, but regret lingers. And let rejection, disappointment, or being overlooked remind you of this too. A closed door does not mean you stop showing up for your future. So send the email, set the limit, protect the evening, decline the extra task, submit the application, try again. Pause before saying yes. Choose peace even if your voice shakes. And remember Proverbs 4:23. Above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. Guard your heart, guard your mind, guard your time, guard your peace. Your future deserves a version of you that isn't constantly drained by the things you were never meant to carry alone. If this episode spoke to you, drop a comment and tell me, which boundary do you need most right now? Time, emotional energy, or a workload? And if you're also in a season where you're learning how to keep going after disappointment without losing yourself, I want to hear from you too. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this with somebody who needs permission to stop being everything for everybody at work. I'll see y'all tomorrow for day 76 of Ways of Change. I'm Vanessa. Thanks for stopping by. Bye.